Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. This episode, The Eye 2, also known as Seeing Ghosts 2. And this is directed by Danny Pang and Oxide Pang in the year 2004. The DVDs from Eastern Eye. Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review, your guide to the wild world of science fiction, action, horror cinema with me, your host, Miller Sipka. Now in this episode, we take a look at the Hong Kong-Singapore co-production of The Eye 2, or in its original language, it's Seeing Ghosts 2. For this video, I'll use the Eye 2 as the official title anyway, just to avoid confusion. Now, this was a Hong Kong-Singapore co-production. It premiered in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Thailand on the 18th of March 2004. It then premiered in Taiwan on the 26th of March 2004, and in the US had its DVD premiere on the 9th of August 2005. It was directed and edited by Danny Pang and Oxide Pang, more commonly known as the Pang brothers. Now, the DVD I'm reviewing this episode is actually the Australian DVD release from Eastern Eye, which is a subsidiary of the Madman Entertainment. I'll get into that later. Now, Seeing Ghosts, known as English language territories as The Eye, was a major hit for Hong Kong and a key film in the Asian ghost story genre that flourished from 1998 to about the late 2000s or so. It made stars of its directors, the identical twins known as the Pang brothers, or known to their mothers as Danny and Oxide Pang. The success of the film prompted a number of sequels, of which this was the first. This is also the last film of the franchise I'm bothering to review, since I don't own any more in the series other than the first two films and the mediocre Jessica Alba Hollywood remake I covered in the past. The original film was a fairly lightweight in the story department, and lacking somewhat in the logic department at times, but still provided a solidly spooky experience, which makes going in to see this mediocre sequel a real headache. And this sequel actually was pretty much very highly rated by the fanboys. But it's not that great a film, and I'll explain why. The main problem is that the story is even more threadbare than the original ones was. We start the film with a mentally disturbed woman, played by Taiwanese actress Shu Qi, who is given an unflattering makeup job here that masks her beauty until the end scene, who believes that her married boyfriend is going to reject her, as he quite honestly should, but he never actually does. Loser. So after maxing out her credit card on a shitload of therapeutic department store shopping, checks into a hotel, tells the staff to wake her up in a couple hours' time, then heads into the hotel room, writes a note informing whoever finds her to send her to the hospital, then puts on a pretty red dress and takes 20 sleeping pills and lies down to sleep the sleep of the dead. Except she doesn't die. The staff come in the nick of time and, as requested, send her off to the hospital, where she gets her stomach pumped. Now, on a side note, I've heard of stomach pumping since high school, but this is actually the first time I've seen the procedure being performed. It's basically what they do is they stick a tube down your throat or nose, then pump it with a liquid, then suck the contents of your stomach out of the tube. It's not pleasant, believe me. She then finds out that she's pregnant with her boyfriend's love child. As she goes about her days trying to cope with the unwanted pregnancy, she begins to see ghosts everywhere. And this is basically the only connection this otherwise unrelated sequel has with the original film, as there's nothing else connected the two films together. Anyway, and after learning that the boyfriend's wife killed herself shortly after learning of her husband's bitch's attempt, discovers that in Buddhism, the dead reincarnate into the unborn children of the mothers-to-be, and in this case, her boyfriend's dead jilted wife wants to reincarnate into becoming her hubby's bitch's love child. Another chance at life, and in a perverse way punishing the Scarlet Woman by being reborn as her husband's lover's daughter. Now, despite the adoption of the tenets of Buddhism into a ghost story, making an original insight into the standard ghost story formula, and also giving an interesting slant to the average haunting, I have no problem with that. In fact, it's intriguing to see what other cultures believe in, and Buddhism is an interesting religion that offers some insight into the mysteries of the afterlife for its followers. One of the tenets of my own religion of Christianity is that you respect the beliefs of others and treat people the same way you want them to treat yourself, something that the socialists of the radical left should take to heart instead of forcing their evil ideology onto other people. Now, despite that, the film is just too badly written to properly reflect its originality. Not to mention the protagonist is just utterly unable to be sympathized with. You can't sympathize with this woman in any way. She's committing adultery with a married man and a successful attempt at getting attention. No way I'm calling this a failed suicide attempt, since the wake-up call request and written note completely dispels the suicide notion. This sook of a bitch just wanted some attention, and from what I know about this kind of thing, anyone who attempts to take their own life purely just for attention generally doesn't die. Those who do a serious attempt to take their own lives usually end up dead. leading to a lover's wife to take her own life, thus having no sympathy for the woman from a smart or ethical viewer. And I do have to say the following. If somebody you know is feeling those dark thoughts or being depressed, please take the time to talk to them. Get them to open up and talk about their feelings. That friendly talk might just help save a life. Now, Shuchi's performance was decent somewhat, but the material she was given just doesn't offer any sort of intelligence about what is a deeply disturbed or possibly even plain psychotic character, who isn't any sort of survivor or fighter, but just a bad character who keeps doubling down on her errors. And to add to that, the ghostly stalker isn't stalking her for any malicious purpose, but just to make her acknowledge her error, and to get another chance at life, in a twisted way wanting to form a close family of sorts. I mean, if you think about it, a bloke's wife kills herself after finding out her husband cheated on her, and she decides to basically reincarnate herself as the daughter of her husband's mistress. Pretty twisted stuff. But kind of makes sense. Now, the ghost is also protecting the Scarlet Woman by keeping her alive. The character keeps attempting to take her own life, but keeps failing. In one instance, basically jumping off a building twice. Which, to be honest, I've never heard of a real life person actually falling from a hospital roof and basically twice and surviving. Anyway. And basically she acts as a sword and guardian angel. I guess if your life is ended due to a bad choice and you want another chance at life, you do best to protect your best chance at a second chance. On a technical level, the film was well made. Well, for the early digital effects of the 2000s, looked decent by today's standards when robust for that time period, so the effects look pretty decent for that time. While the shock effects are effective, well, for some of the plotting is a little more than a little suspect. What kind of hospital has such slipshod security protocols that allow a suspected rapist to be within meters of one of his victims? But this is just a very poorly scripted sequel that never reaches the sophistication of the best of this genre, something the original film achieved a place in. So, Seeing Ghosts 2, or the I2, whichever title you prefer, gets a D+, 3 out of 10. Despite an intriguing spin on the ghost story concept, this is just plain junky for a sequel. Pretty much bad writing and a very unsympathetic heroine. Now for gore and nudity, despite a small body count, there is very little gore. What we do get amounts to half smashed in faces and a graphic depiction of stomach pumping and no nudity. Now about this disc, it's this. My notes. Now the film is it's in region 4, so if you have a multi-regional DVD player, or if you have a DVD player that can play PAL, not PayPal, then you won't have any problems with this. The thing is, it's in 185 wide. It's got two soundtracks, Cantonese 5.1 and Cantonese DTS 5.1, and English subtitles. Although I should point out that the English subtitles in this one actually don't kick in when there's actual English dialogue in the film. So if you're deaf and watching this, you're going to miss the English dialogue. And plus, there's actually a couple of points where the cast really don't do their English parts well. Now, the supplement consists of a behind the scenes, a trailer, a photo gallery, and the usual Madman propaganda preview trailers. Okay, and that's it for this film. Now, the I2, or the Seeing Ghosts 2, gets a D+, 3 out of 10. It's disappointing. Not terrible, but just not that great. Definitely not the classic that... I don't feel it's a classic that many people make it out to be. But if you like the film, that's fine. I have no problem with that. It is interesting. Okay, that's it for that review. Now, I know my hair is getting long. Of course, we're under lockdown, so can't exactly get to a hairdresser. But I will, eventually. Okay, take it easy, guys. Stay safe, and that's it for this review. See ya.